So we're learning the final part of chapter 22 in the Hechaltzu of the Rebbe Rashab. In this chapter, he talks about the Yud of the Shem Hashem. And he explains a very, very subtle issue in Chassidus, and that is that the Yud itself has two ideas to it. Usually in Chassidus, Chabad, the Yud, we say is Chochmah, it's in the Kudah, it's a point, a geometric flash, a point. And Chochmah is the idea of the creative idea. So you don't have a full form, you don't really understand it, you just have an idea. But here, in this chapter, and especially in today's Shir, the last part of the chapter, the Rebbe Rashab finds another very important aspect to the Yud. And that is, there is the way the Yud is Chochmah going upward, and there is the Yud, which is Chochmah going downward. Downward meaning towards us, towards creation. And there is the Yud going upward towards pre-creation. So, for example, when we talk about a student in a classroom with a professor, a teacher, listening to the genius idea of the teacher, and the student, the teacher, we learned already earlier in the chapter, has to make what we call, in the last chapter as well, a tzimtzum. The teacher has to say to himself, my objective here is that the student should know the information. And for that, I cannot overwhelm him with what I know because he won't follow. So the teacher has to make a contraction, what we call a tzimtzum, on his own understanding. Then, within the contraction, he needs to find place and find a way to communicate the idea so that the student can take the idea, learn the idea, study it, and develop the idea. So there's two aspects that the teacher has to do. One is in him, they're both in himself, but one is in himself, like I say, going upward. One is in himself going downward. What do I mean? One is contracting his knowledge. That's going upward, removing himself and his knowledge. Removing himself. The purpose is that the removal itself should give a leeway for the emergence of a student. Now, once we have the emergence of a student, what do you communicate to that student? So we say what we communicate is first on the kudah, an idea. Once you have the idea, you can develop the idea. So in today's section of what we're going to learn, the end of chapter 22, the Rashab says that we find these two nekudas, these 2 points, Hillel, also in the Yud of Chochmah. There is the way Chochmah, the creative idea, is going upward, with up, meaning removal from conscious mind. It's kind of going into the superconscious, whatever, subconscious, superconscious. Then there is the way the Yud already starts saying, hey, I'm still a Yud, I'm still an idea, but I am an idea for emergence. I'm not an idea for removal. I am an idea for emergence. At that very moment, that's when there is the plane, the form of an existence. So I call that the Yud going downward towards expansion. In the Yud, in the first aspect of the Yud, there's no interest in expansion, Hillel. The interest of that Yud is to go upward, to be more removed. In the second aspect of the Yud, It's yud. It's a nakuda. It's a point. We don't have yet a full form. We don't have a developed idea. But what exists in the second aspect is that the yud says to itself, I'm interested now in expansion, in emergence. And at that moment, emergence takes place. That's what we're going to learn now. Let's look inside. Let's turn to page, I guess it's 190, 191. It's the middle of the page. We are Avol Prinas Hanekuda de Chochma, which would be the first line. I don't know if I have the right page. Again, it's 4 or 5 pages different than mine. It's the first line.
191.
Thank you. Thank you very much. 191, the first line after the first 5 words after the comma. Let's read. Avol Prinas Hanekuda de Chochma hi shebo b'prinas gili b'kli mayach hachochma. By contrast, the intellectually defined point of Chochma, as revealed in the mind of Chochma, hi shebo b'prinas gili b'kli mayach hachochma. It's revealed in the mind of Chochma. Ve'imei yoyse nikreis ayin legabe Hagilui de Bina, and although it is called nothing, ayin, in relation to Bina, which is the development state, nevertheless, Harihi Gamke B'Chinas Gilui, it too is revealed. Why? V'hainu. Look what the Rashab says. Mashabo b'tzir l'fiyoyfa masha'efshel is galas b'bina, because insofar as it has become defined in a form that can later be revealed in Bina. You hear that? Hillel. In other words, in the higher aspect of Chochma, Moshe, there's no ability for there to be a Bina later. When you're in pure state of creativity and idea, all that exists in that level, in that experience, is idea. The sense of development from that perspective doesn't exist. But the second aspect of Chochmah is where idea starts giving room for emergence, for expansion, for development. That means that the world of Bina is a possibility. In the first aspect of Chochmah, there's no possibility for Bina. That's what he says. Let's continue inside. V'hu B'chinas habeis, and that's why we call this the second level, the Nekudas HaChochmah, the dimensions of the point of Chochmah, that is relevant to the recipient and can be developed within his frame. Shehi B'chinas HaNekudas Sichlis B'gilui B'klei Meichai L'fi Erech HaBina. This is the point of intellect that is revealed in the vessels of the mind that is already relative to the power of Bina. The Rashab says now, the first level is a point that is not yet as intellectual, is not yet an intellectual entity that may be actually grasped by the vessels of the mind to the point that can be thoroughly comprehended. Next page. There's a quote in Tehillim, how very deep are your thoughts. Hashem, Moshe, your thoughts, are very deep. Says the Rashab, in explaining this pasuk in Tehillim, this part of the verse, the machshava hu b'chinas chochma. Machshava in the verse refers to chochma. How very deep are your thoughts? Hainu b'chinas oimek hachochma, b'chinas pliyas hachochma. This refers to the levels of the second aspect of Chokhmah, which is the wonders of Chokhmah. The second aspect. The first aspect. This is what flows from what's called the Koyach HaMaskil, the subconscious source of intelligence that lies deep within the soul, bringing about insights to be grasped by the power of Chokhmah. It is still considered ayin, not concealment. Okay, now look what he says here. This is what we call in Kabbalah keser within Chokhmah, right? You have all the Sfiros, and you also have keser. So he says, this is called the crown within Chokhmah, which is beyond comprehension of Bina. Kitzer. In this chapter, we focused on two levels in the revelation of the point of Chokhmah. The first level is the initial revelation in a person's mind. When the intellectual idea flows in his mind, it is like a lightning lash, simple, elusive, and undefined. Yet, grasped within his mind to the extent that he feels, he knows. Next page, he knows it. At this level, he cannot communicate it to others. He cannot even put it into words in his own mind. The second level, however, of Chokhmah is when a concept has been defined with an intellectual form that can be grasped as a general point. It has crystallized in the person's mind, and he can begin to develop it. Nevertheless, it is It is not comprehensible by Bina, which invokes grasping the concept in detail. Thus, the point of Chokhmah is an intermediate level, undefined when speaking within the context of his recipients, but defined when speaking about the teacher's own perception. Now, since today is Yud Ches Kislev, it's the last day for the Hayom Yom, because tomorrow we start the Tanya anew, because it's Yud Ches Kislev. So, Ibit Hashem, tomorrow we'll bring some more, but just to give you a little bit now as a teaser. So it's interesting to note, and I think we discussed it in the past, that at the end of the Hayom Yom today it says Gut Yom Tov, Belimud HaChasidus, Uvadaki HaChasidus, Tikoseim V'Zechoseim. Now, when should you say that? Today, Yud Ches Kislev or Yud Tes Kislev? Seemingly, you should say it on Yud Tes Kislev. The Yom Tov is Yud Tes, not Yud Ches. Today is Yud Tes, Yud Ches. So when we read today's Hayom Yom, what's printed at the end of the Hayom Yom? Good Yom Tov. Now, someone will argue, which is wrong, that this isn't really connected to Yud Ches, but it's kind of the conclusion of the entire book. So it's not designated for Yud Ches. It's kind of in limbo. But that's wrong. It's printed in the section of Hayom Yom for Yud Ches Chai Kislev. So one of the thoughts that is important here is preparation. In order to appreciate the Yom Tov of Yud Tes Kislev, you need to prepare yourself. It's hard, especially when it's the middle of a week, like it is this year, and the week just began today, or you guys Sunday, and everyone's coming and going and all that. But there's no question that if you focus and you prepare yourself, then the day of Yud Tes Kislev is more meaningful. So yes, there have been in Eretz Yisrael Farbrengen since already last Thursday night, I think, that summer program, and Velvels told me that there was a Farbrengen in Cologne, I think yesterday already, which is wonderful. But as a davar hashava l'chol nefesh, something that is equal for everyone, it's the day before, right? Right? Erev Rosh Hashanah is Erev Rosh Hashanah. It's not the week of Slichas. Week of Slichas is a different energy. And yes, Slichas are preparing us for Rosh Hashanah. For that matter, the entire Elul is preparing ourselves. So there are stages. There's the Chodesh Elul. We come closer, there's the week of Slichas. And then there is Erev Rosh Hashanah. The same thing as with Yutas Kislev. And Baruch Hashem, I was able to take my haircut within 30 days of Rosh Hashanah, Yutas Kislev. Right? So the whole month is, for me and for others that focus that way, a preparation. So although usually I take it this week, my haircut, but I had so much hair and it was disturbing me, and it was a chatzitza for tefillin, that I took it off within the 30 days. So it's a cute little, joke, but there's some truth to it. In other words, there's focus, and we get closer. So we could say, I'm trying to explain that the Rebbe put in, our Rebbe is the one, I think, that put it in on the days. The Rebbe was the one that collected all of this information from his father-in-law, from the Frierdiker Rebbe, but the Rebbe was the one who put the particular saying in Hayom Yom to that particular day. Now, I don't know, truth be told, I'll ask Rabbi Zelickson, maybe he knows, because he was, he wrote, and had responses with the Rebbe on Hayom Yom. These words, Gut Yontiv, Belimud Chassidus of Adarka Chassidus, if those words were inserted by the Frierdiker Rebbe or by our Rebbe. It just, as I'm talking, I'm thinking I'd like to find that out. If we could find that out, it'd be a very important point. But be that as it may, what is the content of this Gut Yom Tiv on Yud Ches? Yud Ches is Chai. Chai is life. Chayim, life. The life of Chassidus is today. Although the Rebbe Rashab wrote in this famous letter in 1901, when he wasn't in Lubavitch for Yutas Kislev, and the Talmidim and Chassidim were devastated, the Rashab, because of his health, traveled. He was away, I heard from someone, like 28 consecutive years for many months during the winter, particularly because of health, and also maybe the summer. So Yutas Kislev is Chabad's big day since the Alter Rebbe, since 1798. So, but the Rashab couldn't make it. He wasn't well enough, and he had to remain in wherever he was. So he wrote a letter, and this letter became like the kind of Bible of Yutas Kislev. And in this letter, tomorrow we'll talk about another part of the letter that he calls it Rosh Hashanah LeChasidus. We'll talk about that tomorrow. But another aspect, he says there in the beginning, on this day, Oir v'chayis niten lanu. Light and vitality and energy has been given to us. And this has been discussed by the Rabbeim, especially the Rebbe, his talks, and Mashpiyim for years. Over 100 years. Oir v'chayis. Right? Now that's on Yutes. The Rashab is saying that on this day, Yutes Kislev, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, through the Balatanya redemption from the Tfisa, from jail, and what that represented, the vindication and solidifying that his approach of Chassidus is not only valid, but the right approach, because the way the previous Rebbe explains it based on his Rebbe's, etc., it is that there was a gzeira, there was a decree on high, on the Alter Rebbe, for publicizing Chassidus in a manner of Chabad. And we know this to be true because some of the Alter Rebbe's contemporaries were against that. namely Rabbi Avram Kalisker, who later moved to Tveria, who's buried there. You can go to his caver in the old cemetery in Tveria. And Rabbi Avram stormed against the Alter Rebbe, wrote letters, and the Alter Rebbe responded, refuted him in letters. And we have the bulk of their letters, we have them. And it's made a tomb of books by academics in Eretz Yisrael. Moshe Halamish from, I think, Ben Gurion, from Tel Aviv University, and then a few of the other professors. Entire works that are based on these letters. So you see that there was a gzeira. In other words, a gzeira, Moshe, means from on high. But I'm showing you that even from below on earth, there was disagreement. And then comes Yutas Kislev. And the Alter Rebbe's life is spared, and Chassidus is spared. Because you know that the accusation and attack of some Misnagdim on Alter Rebbe wasn't just on the Alter Rebbe, it was on Karlin, it was on Chassidus. And I say this every year, and I say it again. That's why I just don't understand why all Hasidim don't celebrate Yutas Kislev. Because this was a vindication for Chassidus, Baal Shem Tov Chassidus, not just Chabad Chassidus. Yes, it's true, the Alter Rebbe was the only one that was brought to Petersburg in the fortress and in the jail and everything else. That's true. But the accusation and the imprisonment was for on Toras HaChasidus, not on just Toras Chabad. And nevertheless, none of the Rebbes made a big deal about that, except that it's the yahrzeit of the Holy Maggid, which is it's a separate idea, a very big idea, but it's a separate idea. We're not talking here about yahrzeit. Anyway, be that as it may, that's what I told you now is historically correct, and why it is, no one knows that, and we go on. But just going back to the Nekuda, that the Yud Ches today, it's about Shona Tova Bedarki Chassidus Uvelimud Chassidus. It's on Yud Ches Chayes. It's a Chay. It's living. In other words, if you go into Yutas Kislev, that it's a living thing, and this is what I'm thinking about. Here we are. How many years is it? 227 years, I believe, since Yutas Kislev. Right? And you have to ask yourself a question. Is this a living reality? Or is it somewhere a relic in a museum? You have to ask yourself this question. And looking at this summer program, we here in America get these clips. I'm not even talking about the music festival. That doesn't turn me on. That's nice, but I'm talking about 800, 1,000 people taking a test in Chassidus. That is real. That's not just a concert. That's learning Chassidus. What we do all year learning Chassidus, that's learning Chassidus. A concert's a different thing. It is very important, and it touches people in a certain way that's very special. And I'm, chas v'sholom, not minimizing that. But when we talk about the study of Chassidus, and you all know from learning Chassidus seriously, that's why you endeavor, you take the time. It opens a whole dimension of thinking that is very important. Yes, Hillel.
What's the test that you're referring to? I'm not.
This organization, Toras Chabad Libnei Yeshivot, which is a program throughout the year where they provide study material in many Hesder yeshivas, some Litvish yeshivas of Chassidus Chabad, Tanya, Derech Mitzvah Secha, whatever. And then I think once a year now, before they have a major test, and they give him money and prizes and things like that. Maybe Moshe knows more details.
Call yourself a cut?
What?
A certified cut? If you pass, you get to call yourself a certified cut?
And
Certified?
no, but really, you guys, even though I know the culture, the anti-Hasidus culture that existed once. You can't imagine what that culture was, okay? And I'm talking about my time. I imagine 150. You see from Rabbi Avram Kalisker, he was against it. 227 years ago, he was against it. So this is a major breakthrough. Now, I'm not saying that in Ponevezh they're learning Tanya as part of the curriculum. I didn't say that. But the fact that that in certain yeshivas, and many yeshivas, mainly probably Hesder yeshivas, Mizrahi yeshivas, they're learning Chassidus seriously is exactly what the Alter Rebbe gave his life for 227 years. So that's living. It's really living. And I said to my friends and I, we have a group, a chat. I said, it puts us to shame here in America. In fact, in Borough Park, they started such an organization emulating what they do in Eretz Yisrael, Kol HaKavod, and it's taken off. It's really taken off. We're in other other Hasidic yeshivas, non-Chabad, they're learning Tanya and they're learning things and they're having tests. They're not becoming Lubavitcher Hasidim. This is not the objective of this program. It's to learn Torah Baal Shem Tov. Yes, Moshe.
I just want to say I'm going there, and I'm going to Sama tonight.
Beautiful.
I'm looking forward to the energy that's there. It's unbelievable. The energy that's there. And to see all the different types of people together.
I agree. I agree with you. And maybe next time arrange to take a group. The Chevra. I mean, I wish I could be there. I'm here. You know what I'm saying? I see it on the screen. It's really something to there's one thing intellectual arguing. Then when you see it, like you come in and you see this with your eyes, it's Rabbi Yoel Kana, by Mashpia. He was there one of the last years before he passed on, and he tested the boys, and he was overwhelmed. 800 boys taking a test, and I think it was a Geras HaTshuva, which we learned. We know how difficult. The point is, this is Chayis. This is Chai. Slept. It's alive. It's alive. Oh, when you come in with this Chai Tevis into Yutas Kislev, it's a positive experience, very positive. And all the arguments and all the Narishkeit, it's ridiculous. Because like we say, this is in the bank. This is in the bank. It doesn't mean you're becoming a chassid. If you're a Litvak, you're a Litvak and a Svardik, and a Bava, and a Sak, and a Belzin, and a Gera, and a Lechovitcher, and a Stoloner, and a Slonimer, Kol HaKavod. But learning Chassidus seriously, Bahamoka, we struggle through some things. It's difficult in Yonam, but that's exactly what the Alter Rebbe wanted. And he took the Nekudas Baal Shem Tov, and it was for all Chassidim. So it's really a great Yom Tov. But if we don't take today's day to think about it, you're driving, as you're driving, like, what is this one day? It's like, Hanukkah is this coming, Hanukkah is midrabanan, but it's for all Klal Yisrael. What is this day? They say a joke. Chof Aleph Kislev is the day when the Satmar Rav, Rabbi Yoel Teitelbaum, was liberated from, I think, Auschwitz or whatever, was saved, right? he argued Nishtak Torah Baal Shem Tov. He said, based on whatever, that we really don't know the ways of the Baal Shem Tov. In other words, a lot of the stuff that Chassidim make up are Baba Mises, baloney. I don't want to go into it. The Rebbe in 1960, Yutas Kislev, cried his heart out for an hour. It's online. You should listen to the Fabrengen. And the Rebbe said, he, Titus Baal Shem Tov. This is the Titus Baal Shem Tov. And the Rebbe was for surely responding to the Satmar Rebbe's words, okay, an idea. And it was a very, very emotional Fabrengen, that Sichas particularly. But, so the joke is, I've heard this in the shuls here. Chabad says Chassidus was born Yutas Kislev. Satmar Rebbe says it died on the 21st of Kislev. When he celebrates, he said there's no Chassidus. So really, how you only celebrate Chassidus one day, Chaf. He says Yutes, he says Chaf Aleph, so they both agree about one day, Chaf. It's a poor joke. It's a real poor joke. Yes, Hillel.
You tell me recently that when the Crown Heights riots took place, that some Satmar Hasidim came to help kind of protect the streets.
Yes.
And so somebody asked them, "What are you guys doing? You guys are fighting with them all the time." And they said, "I can fight with my brother, but if somebody else picks on him, then I got to show up."
Yes, very true. Very true. So, Chavre will continue tomorrow. Hashem will bring more. But, so at least we're going into this Lashon Teva, but Libad Chassidus, everyone should have a good year in the study of Chassidus, in the ways of Chassidus, Dark Chassidus, because Sefer Chassidus may be written and engraved, you, your family, your children, grandchildren, all our families, and we should be zeicher to see Gula Shleima Mashiach now. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Thank you.